My name is Devin Cox. I am a native of South Caicos. Born to parents Brenda Lee Saunders and Reuben Cox. Together they had 5 children, but my mom had 6 children. So I'm the second in that lineup of children of the 6.
Devin, thank you for agreeing to be on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate the time you've taken out. I'm also from South Caicos. I knew your mom, Brenda, really well. Of course, I knew your father as well. In fact, your house was not too far away from our house.
That's right, that's right.
I remember your great-grandmother, Miss Jeanette, I think.
Yes, yes.
I remember her because I think your mother lived with her.
Yes, that's correct, that's correct.
And I know you had both parents, obviously. To be here on Earth, you had to have 2 parents.
Yes.
But your mom, as far as I'm concerned, was a single mom.
Yeah.
Tell us about how that life was, living in a single-parent home with your mother, and then your father obviously had other children by other people. How was it growing up in that type of environment?
Yeah. Honestly, Jax, as I reflect and as I get older, you can kind of understand it a little bit better now. But back then, it was a struggle to understand because my daddy had so many children, but he would leave from his house on the hill, and then he would kind of stop by the restaurants or different places to play dominoes, and then he would journey to our house. So we get to see him like for a short window, and then he get up early and then end up going into the boat because he was a fisherman. But growing up in South Caicos, and as a in a single parent home for the most part, it was not an easy task. It was not easy, but we managed to come together and figure it out as a family, and so it was good. So even though he wasn't present like that, he still provided though for the house.
Okay, so he provided the financial support.
Yes.
But not physically there all the time.
Yes.
With both parents.
Yes, he wasn't physically there. That's correct. That's correct.
How did, I know it was young, but how did that impact you? I mean, or you didn't know at that time? I mean,
it was normal for me, honestly. Like I didn't recognize it as not having 2 parents per se, Draxwell. Because like I said, he would still come, but now knowing what I know now, you can see that he was very much, not really there. And I think, how does it impact me? You recognize that you don't get the "I love you" conversations that I now am able to have with my own children. And so it made me focus primarily on being a provider. And that has been one of the things that I kind of almost like pride myself on, like, oh, well, I can at least provide for my family because I've seen it modeled. Despite the 20-plus children, he still provided. But in terms of being able to tuck you in and to have, story time and to talk to you about, life per se, really never really benefited from that as much, right? And then even with my mom, she was not very much a communicator either. So it was, growing up really not hearing certain things that is almost like seems just so standard as I communicate and converse with my children. And so it's something that I grew up with, not having that, that ability to really communicate the way I think I should have been able to communicate.
Yeah. And coming from a single parent home, and Brenda's your mom, a lot of people do not like this, but we really had a class structure in South Caicos growing up. We really had a class system. Mm-hmm. And so your mom would have been considered more or less to the bottom of the class structure.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it was like it looked impossible probably for you to even perhaps go to college. Did those things cross your mind that perhaps you might even go to college because of the background that you came from a single mom, and your mom was Brenda? Mm-hmm. Did that cross your mind?
Yeah, and in fact, just full disclosure here, I can tell you it was definitely not on my mind, because my mom was not really big into education, nor was my dad big into education. In fact, a lot of my brothers would actually come out of school and go into work in the family business, which is fishing, right? Catch fish. And then my mom used to kind of help and do cleanings and things of that. So it's really much more survival. And I grew up thinking that. I think about, okay, well, maybe I just need to figure out a way, how do I get into the boating industry, being able to fish and to survive from that perspective. But the thing is, I was not really good at it. And then when my mom died, or my dad died, first I was around 11, and then I moved in with my grandparents, and so I
After your dad died.
after my dad died. So I actually left my mom's house and moved in with my grandparents, who was Norman Saunders and Emily Saunders. So I moved in with them, and so they recognized that there was a huge educational deficiency because it was not a major emphasis in our in my home, and with my mom and my daddy when he would come. So the first thing they did was actually start to work on me learning how to read. And so that process actually worked out. So I ended up learning how to read at the age of 13. And through that process, and even after being done with high school, I was still not thinking about college. In fact, I wanted to work and be an immigration officer. In fact, after school, because my brother, Robert, actually went into that field, and he was pretty successful from my lens. So that was my aspiration, that I would become an immigration officer. And then my aunt, Denise Saunders, she pretty much said to me, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with you becoming an immigration officer, but I don't want you to go in that direction at this time. I want you to go to college. And so that was like the first instance of me trying to even think about college, because I always felt like, some of the other families, they had the money, they had the opportunity, and therefore I say, well, they can afford to go. In fact, I would joke with a couple of my friends and say, well, your bread is butter. You're going to school. Your parents will insist that you go to school. And I didn't feel like I had that opportunity, because it wasn't especially after losing my daddy, and then after, losing my mom, before even having the opportunity to go to college, I was just like, it's just out of the question. So those things kind of worked, right? And in that way, where I was able to get a scholarship, and I thank Carlton Mills for, helping with that process, and so the Lord, put people in your place and around you to help to create opportunities for you to be able to achieve some of these objectives. But he actually helped me write my letter to the government requesting a scholarship, highlighting the fact that both parents have passed, and this is an opportunity for me to be able to become a better citizen of this country, Turks and Caicos. And that's how I end up getting off to college. Yeah.
So where did you go to college? And what did you major in?
A small school in Ohio, Xenia, Ohio, Wilberforce University. I went there, and it's actually a black school, African American school.
I know Wilberforce. I went to school in Ohio as well.
Yeah. and so I went there and did electrical engineering. And so I did that for 3.5 years, because I would have gone to community college and I would have gotten an associate's degree in that area, or a diploma in that area, diploma from the community college here. And so that allowed and opened up a door for me to, eventually then even apply to a school, Webster University, and got a master's degree in business administration. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. So how did you perform at Wilberforce?
Pretty well. I did pretty good. It was pretty good. The thing about university, you get points just for actually going into class, right? But some of the math, because I was not the strongest in terms of my writing and grammar skills, but I was really solid in math, and that's why I went into engineering. So it was I held my own at university. However, one of the teachers actually said to me, she said, I never forget her, she was my my math teacher. She said, Mr. Cox, you are an average student. I said, yes. She said, but not to worry. The President of the United States is an average student, so you would be just fine. I can see you in management. First seed of being planted in my head of management. And because she said that most people are average, and therefore you have an opportunity to be able to communicate with those people, as opposed to those scholarly minds.
So that was on that same level. You
can talk and you can speak a language that they can understand. Sometimes most people that are scholarly, it's difficult to comprehend what they're saying. They live in the clouds and they talk in the clouds.
Above your level. I like that.
So she actually said that to me, and that was something that I kind of held on to. I didn't run away from it. And I embrace it. I embrace my averageness, but I also always aspire to try to learn something new every day. So
Awesome.
if that makes me average, and I'm happy to be average.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
So Devin, you're now an executive at Fortis. Tell the viewers that journey. I know you finished with Webster with your master's in business management. Tell us the journey it took for you to become. I think you what's your position at Fortis?
I'm senior vice president.
Senior
of
vice
operations,
president. From someone who started reading at age 13. Now you're senior vice president, one of the largest companies in Turks and Caicos Islands. How did that journey took place?
Well, let me just say that, again, let me credit Butch Clear. Let me tell you, there's always someone who will give you a seed, right?
Yes.
And that seed will turn into a fruit. So one time, I never forget this, I was at the airport in South Caicos. I was actually working for the airline. My grandmother, Miss Sanders, she used to be like the agent. And I remember working there, and this guy, Butch Clear, was the manager of AEP in South Caicos. And he actually said, he came then, I said, Mr. Clear, I really want a job here. And he said to me, he said, well, you can do it. And I said, I want an engineering role. I want the top role. I never forget. And he said, well, you can do it. Now, whether he believed that or not, it registered, it like electricity ran through my brain with hope.
Right.
And I held on to that, And so after that opportunity, after that conversation, and then my auntie, who then pulled me and pushed me in the direction of going to college, and I went to college, and then I met another teacher at the college, at Com College, and he also said, I said, I want to be an engineer. He said, you can do it. You can do it. As a physics teacher. And he said, you have the concepts, you can do it. And so, then going off to Wilberforce and coming back, I worked with the government, and they actually created a position for me in the government, which was a privilege again, to work alongside the Energy Commissioner as a test engineer. And so I worked with him for a while, and then he left, and then I became the Deputy Electricity Commissioner. And eventually, I acted in the role of the commissioner for a little while. And then the opportunity presented itself where I was able to work with Fortis. And so I came on to Fortis as a planning engineer, working there and just being content in that role, and just continue to take advantage of the different opportunities, continue to grow, and promotions happen to the point where I'm actually in this position now as a senior vice president of operations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's quite a journey, but it's a quick journey, but it's I'm very pleased and satisfied with.
Right. How long you been with Fortis? How long you been in that position?
I've been in the position now about 3 years, I would say. I need to check that and confirm that, but I've been with Fortis since 2007, up until now.
Okay. So Devin, what advice would you give to persons out there, especially children, who feel that they're nobody? Their father is a married man and their mom is single, and they feel that they're not going to go anywhere. What advice would you give to persons who have that mentality, who feels that way?
Yeah. So Drax, I would say, every piece of your story does play a role in who you become. So learning how to read at such a late age, it eliminated my whole idea of being ashamed to ask questions. Because after going through that, what I would consider to be a painful experience of having to do your phonics at age 13, right? And people were so much further along their reading journey than I was. It just made me realize that you just have to be bold, and you have to ask the questions, and people might laugh at the question you ask, but they only get to laugh once, because when you leave that environment, you are now stronger and better because you now know what you didn't know before. So I live with that, just ask the question, because I want to gain understanding. And in gaining understanding, I have improved my situation from where it was when I first started. So I would tell people, who are along this journey, listen, just be bold, just ask questions. Want to know, don't wait, don't think about what someone might think about you, just ask the questions, because at the end of it, you will know more than you did before.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage people to do that. I think that's one of the main things, right?
And it doesn't matter your background.
It doesn't matter your background, and you know, but I would also say too, just to kind of capture the question that you asked, you know, growing up in a family where you have your mother who is not married, and your father who is married, and you know there are some challenges that you face. I mean, I literally felt like I didn't belong in a lot of instances, and then you know, and then especially as you relate to, you know, some families, they have certain political leanings. You know, one family is this, the other family is this. You know, you still didn't feel like you belong, and I think that's one of the challenges. You know, and then I craved my own family. That's why I got married at such a young age, right? Because I just wanted my own family, and that was one of the driving forces for me. Because I figured, okay, well, I have an opportunity to raise my children differently, and I think that's really some of the drive. But I do think there's a challenge that people face because you deal with the stigma, right?
Yes.
Of just being this, or you are this illegitimate child, so to speak.
You know, they used to call it bastard back then.
Bastard,
It's like a dirty word, you know what I mean?
It's true.
It's
true. It's true. Yeah.
Tell us about your family. You say you got married. Tell us about your family, you know.
Yeah, so I have three children. Micaiah, who is my oldest child, she's now 14. I have a son who has autism, who's 12, and then I have a 10-year-old, Adaya. She's the last child of my union, and of course I have children that I mentor. Like I mentioned, Darren Halle is one of those children that I kind of mentor. I feed into him and pour into his life. But yeah, and you know, even that, right? With my son Josiah in particular, you know, he has autism. That was a journey in itself, and you know, recognizing that you have to communicate with people as if they don't know, because you can't take knowing for granted. And as you're conversing with him, you would think that he understands something, but he doesn't understand it. But he taught me how to exist in the management world, right? How to, you know, we're all different people, and I think that's been a huge lesson for me. Like I said, everything that we are faced with helps to shape who we are as a people, and so I'm grateful for him. He's been a blessing to my life.
That is awesome, and of course, I mean, Nicole is your wife.
Yes. How did I missed to mention my wife, right? Yes, right. Nicole is my wife, and my wife of 15 years now. Wow. Yeah, we've been married 15 years. So.
Well, Devin, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to sit down with you. I mean, when I think about Brenda, I know Brenda really well, and unfortunately, she's not here with us. But I know if she were, she would be proud of the accomplishment of her children. I mean, even though Honorable Saunders is your grandfather, a lot of people didn't even know that he was your grandfather.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And so you came from, you know, we'll say nothing really to something.
Yeah.
And so we hope that this video will inspire people that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, that you could be whatever you want to be.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you recognize the people that God put in your life, and you give them credit for the journey that you are on. Yeah. And so thank you so much. I don't know if you have any closing remarks you want to say.
No, just that. You know, all of the life lessons that you are gaining, it is just that. It is a lesson, and it is for something. And you know, the fact that you have already experienced it means that you already paid the price for it. So use it. You know, and so I would encourage people to be bold and to use every opportunity that they have been given and take advantage of it, exploit that opportunity, and then just leave the rest to the Lord and see what He does.